We have arrived at the penultimate episode of Creature Commandos, and we had the revelation of a tragic past with Dr. Phosphorus. The episode not only showed Dr. Phosphorus's tragic past, but also featured a small special appearance by the Batman from the DCU. It also gave us a glimpse of what the visual representation of Gotham City in the DCU will look like. I think after seeing these cameos of Batman in the city of Gotham, people will now understand that the Batman of the DCU will not be Robert Pattinson. So in today's video, we will analyze the 6th episode of Creature Commandos in detail and look at some references because there are quite a few. We will also explore Dr. Phosphorus's arc, since this episode is focused on him, and we'll have some theories about what might happen at the end of the series. But before we start, don't forget to click the like button, comment below, and subscribe for more content like this. Also, follow us on our other social media platforms, Instagram and Threads, where I will keep you updated about this universe that we love so much. All right, without further ado, let's get into our analysis. The episode starts by showing an overview of Gotham, with gargoyles on the buildings and searchlights all over the city, as well as a lot of graffiti on the walls of the city's streets. So this is our first glimpse of Gotham in the DCU, and I thought this visual was really good. I also found it interesting that they put a kind of greenish filter over it, but that didn't bother me at all. I think it fits with this Gotham and looks very much like Gotham from the comics. The only thing missing was those dirigibles flying around Gotham City, but visually, it resembled comic book Gotham quite closely. This doesn't mean that in live-action Gotham in the DCU will look exactly like this, because James Gunn has already confirmed in a recent interview that the visual aspects of some characters or places won't necessarily resemble those in animation. This makes sense since the series serves as a way to introduce characters and some locations in the DCU for us to understand that this universe already exists and has almost everything established. So here we see Dr. Alex Sartorius, or Dr. Phosphorus, before his transformation. He tries to escape from mobsters while driving, but is captured again, and who is threatening him is crime boss Rupert Thorne. Here we can already see that this episode will focus on Dr. Phosphorus's past. The origin presented in this episode is partially inspired by his origin from his first appearance in Steve Englehart's comic book, where he also gets involved with Rupert Thorne while constructing a nuclear power plant in Gotham. However, it's important to note that several changes have been made, especially with the addition of Alex's family and his relationship with the Mafia, which made Dr. Phosphorus's story more tragic than in his first appearance. I believe all these additions to the character's story were very welcome in this version of the DCU. I must say that these flashback scenes are among the highlights of this episode. Perhaps this has been the best flashback throughout Creature Commandos so far. We have a beautiful transition from Dr. Phosphorus's flashback to present day when he is hiding from Princess's soldiers. When he realizes there's no one around, he starts singing the theme song from the series opening, and wisely they cut to the animation opening. I thought this scene was a clever touch. In the castle, the princess gives an order to her soldiers to locate and kill the commandos. Additionally, she states that she won't hide from the threat and will stay there to coordinate her troops. The way we're seeing Princess Alana here, so strong and determined, really made me believe that all of Cersei's vision was completely off the mark and that Princess Alana doesn't really want to invade the United States, but that was already explained with all that trouble with Clayface. Meanwhile, we see our team fleeing through the city, and by coincidence, Nina ends up finding the bride, who almost shoots her. They argue, but upon seeing more guards approaching, they quickly look for shelter. The guards notice some strange movement and go to check it out, and the bride, in a very rude way, threatens the head of the women to hide her and Nina, which works. The guards end up not realizing they are there, especially since they are paying more attention to the women around. However, they are still close outside, which makes it impossible for them to escape now. I also thought it was a good move to highlight the interaction between the bride and Nina, one who is extremely needy for new friendships and the other who is dark and doesn't want to make friends with anyone. I think that because they are so different, a beautiful friendship will blossom between them. This episode had a secondary objective of focusing on the development of the friendship between the bride and Nina, which is something that James Gunn has been doing in the last episodes. However, here I feel like he's doing this because in the last episode, either Nina or the bride will sacrifice themselves for the other. I think it's very likely that this will happen. We cut to Rick Flag being rushed to the emergency room. Amanda Waller and John Economos are together to find out what happened. They receive details from some doctors and discover that Flag was attacked by a monster, deducing it could only have been Frankenstein, and maybe he is heading to Pokalistan to find his bride. Amanda Waller asked them to increase security at the airport, but the problem is that Frankenstein was already on a private plane. After killing the passengers, he practically forces the pilots to head to Pokalistan, doing so while acting like an innocent person talking about love. But how can someone so devoted to love have no empathy for humans? He believes that by saving the bride from making a mistake, she will return to his arms. Meanwhile, we see Weasel fleeing towards the forest and getting surrounded by wolves. What could have been a threat turns into a great friendship as Weasel plays with the wolves all night. This serves more as comic relief for this episode. Now, I'm really curious to know if Weasel will survive in the last episode, because it's typical of James Gunn to kill off Weasel without anyone knowing what really happened in the past. In the next scene, we see Dr. Phosphorus entering a house to hide from Princess's guards. Upon seeing photos of a family, he starts remembering his own. His wife expresses concern about the people her husband is working with because she fears mobsters like Rupert Thorne. However, Alex made a deal with Rupert Thorne to fund his research since he could discover a painless treatment for cancer. Alex then takes on the risk. Shortly after, the animation shows one of the most tragic origin scenes. Rupert Thorne killed Alex's wife and son, who cries in despair for his family. Man, that scene was very heavy. It was a huge shock for me because I didn't expect that to happen so suddenly. It's really shocking. I think the direction did this to make it as unexpected for us as it was for Alex, so we could feel that shock from his perspective. And here we go. Back to that scene at the beginning of the episode where Alex is taken in a van and tries to escape but fails. Back in the present, a child finds Dr. Phosphorus and shows no fear of his appearance. Dr. Phosphorus then asks the child if they are hungry. Meanwhile, we see Weasel still playing with the wolves, and at the women's house, the bride and their leader get into an argument. The bride doesn't see much dignity in these women's work, which is ironic considering she kills people. The truth is that this leader reads the bride perfectly well, which makes her very uncomfortable. To make matters worse, two completely drunk men enter the house looking to be with one of the women. We cut back to Dr. Phosphorus treating the girl very well by offering her some food. He contemplates killing her out of fear she might betray him, triggering another flashback where we see Thorne furious that Alex had falsified his research results. It turns out Alex falsified those results because Rupert Thorne would send that information to a Bialian dictator government. Thorne finally gets fed up with Alex and puts him into a machine he designed himself. However, instead of being disintegrated by nuclear radiation, he actually gains powers, and his appearance changes into Dr. Phosphorus. Back at the House of Women, we see that they have a problem. Those men are not treating one of them well, and the boss of the place goes there to explain how things work on this property, and she is quite tough and doesn't back down even when faced with her brother's powers. In this scene, we have our first direct reference that there are metahumans everywhere in the DCU. Even with the boss's intervention, things spiral out of control, forcing Nina and the bride to step in. This results in a beautiful fight between the bride and the metahuman, and at the end of the fight, the bride rips out the metahuman's heart. After that, the duo takes this moment to leave home, and we can see how much closer they have become. Back to the flashback, Phosphorus returns with powers and furious. He kills Rupert Thorne and his entire family, then goes after his henchmen. We can see here that the transformation has changed Alex's personality. He used to want to cure cancer, but now he's completely eccentric and wants to build an empire with Rupert Thorne's money. In fact, he becomes a major villain in Gotham, and notably, he forces his henchmen to wear skeleton masks, which seems to reference that gang that appears in Batman Forever. Meanwhile, we see Dr. Phosphorus dancing while we witness some of his crimes, but the party abruptly ends when the lights go out, giving us our first glimpse of Batman in the DCU, referencing Batman the Animated Series. So guys, I thought this whole sequence was sensational. In this frame of Batman, we can see that he will have a gray suit, and it seems like he has underwear on top. However, we can't deduce that this will be Batman's visual in live action for the DCU, because James Gunn has mentioned in several interviews that he even asked not to show Batman's look to avoid committing to it, since they will only reveal Batman's design in the Brave and the Bold movie. In the present day, the little girl's parents wake up due to a noise. They go outside and find their daughter still alive, playing with Dr. Phosphorus. Meanwhile, we see Amanda Waller next to Rick Flag. She seems genuinely concerned about Flag. The episode ends with Frankenstein arriving in Pokolistan and the Creature Commandos gathering to head towards the castle. So that was our analysis of episode 6 of Creature Commandos. I also liked this episode. I enjoyed how the arc of Dr. Phosphorus was constructed. You can see throughout the episode that the character development is done in an intelligent way, along with other characters as well. I liked it. This episode is on the same level as the others so far. So don't forget to click the like button, comment below, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.